So thank you, everyone. Didn't expect to see 9 people here on a rainy day, so good sign. Tushita is a good place to take shelter during rainy weather, I would say. Although if there's too much rain, then I don't know, the basement may get flooded, but hasn't happened yet. So just some background. We've been, well, if you want the deep background for complete beginners, so this center has been around since the late 70s, but not here. In this location, maybe 25, 26 years, something like that. And the purpose of the people who started the center, the Tibetan lamas, was to help repay the kindness, as they put it, help repay the kindness of the historic Indian people. So what they meant by that was that in the 8th century, 7th, 8th century, Buddhism went from India to Tibet. That was due to the efforts of Indian people as well as Tibetans. The Tibetans were very intent on that happening and put in a lot of sacrifice, a lot of effort. And of course, the Indian abbots and various masters also put in a lot of time and effort. And so by the 8th century, Buddhism was established in Tibet. Then if we fast forward, missing out a lot, we fast forward to the 20th century, then in early 1950s, the Chinese invaded Tibet. And by 1959, that situation had become intolerable. And in fact, the safety of His Holiness the Dalai Lama was in question. There was danger to his life. And it was decided that he escaped from Tibet. And of course, that historic moment in March 1959, His Holiness was then given refuge in India. The Prime Minister of that time, Jawaharlal Nehru, gave full welcome and support to the Tibetans. They established their colonies, and most importantly also for us, their monasteries in South India, as well as various other places. In fact, they many of them had to spend 2 or 3 years in what was an ex-concentration camp in Assam. It had been used as a concentration camp for prisoners during the Second World War. They stayed there because there wasn't anywhere else to go for many of the teachers, the lamas. And they just continued studying and practicing there in a very, you could say, in as dynamic a way as they could, given the conditions. Many of them got sick. Many of them got TB and died, especially TB. The conditions were totally new for them, the food, everything. So anyway, it's due to their efforts and also others' efforts that the Buddhism that they had preserved at a time when it had been completely wiped out in India was preserved. They brought it back and started institutions in Dalhousie, Dharamsala, and in the south, big monasteries in the south of India, in North Karnataka and South Karnataka, which is still flourishing to this day. So that's what our teachers meant when they said to repay the kindness of historic Indian people for first of all, transmitting the Dharma to Tibet, and then welcoming and allowing so many Tibetans, about 100,000 initially, to come and stay and establish their institutions. And in fact, that was simply indicative of the long and fruitful relationship, dharmic relationship between India and Tibet. And as His Holiness jokingly says, initially India was the guru and the Tibetans were the chelas. And that's kind of reversed because here we kind of forgot that Dharma, the Buddhist teachings, almost wiped out, you could say, in India. At least the full form of them as preserved in, as was practiced at Nalanda, for example, that Nalanda tradition, in all of its vast scope, Theravada teachings, Mahayana, Vajrayana, all of them were taught at Nalanda. So that tradition was preserved in Tibet completely, totally. And the Tibetans not only preserved it, they wrote many, many commentaries on the original texts, sutras, as well as on the texts of the Indian pundits. So the Tibetans really did an amazing job. And it's due to their kindness that we have Tushita Center and can study the vastness of the Buddhist teachings, not just a small part of them, but the whole range. So anyway, just a little bit about that. So, of course, here we give more basic teachings. Sometimes we have very erudite scholars who come and give slightly higher level teachings. But basically, we engage in very fundamental, important fundamental teachings, following the basic teachings of the Buddha. But then I think what I would say is that I try to make it meaningful for what I understand to be the situation of us modern people living in the 21st century, given our background and the challenges that are there in our world, which are very vast right now. Personal challenges are always there, but in our world we see vast challenges. Just, for example, the weather we're having in Delhi now, that is very unusual weather. It's also very harmful. A lot of the crop has been destroyed, this rain, it's come at the wrong time. So this is going to impact a lot of people. Of course, many middle class, upper middle class, rich people, not so affected, but everyone is affected to some degree. And what it does to the ecosystem, the planet, the nature, that is, of course, another matter. Of course, temporarily it feels very good to have rain, and everything looks fresh and clean, and pollution levels will be less tomorrow. But my point is, we're living at a time when many things are a bit topsy-turvy, upside down. So one might say we need more than ever, we need the wisdom and the kindness, I would say, and the courage. The courage that is emphasized in especially in the Mahayana tradition, because in Mahayana, the scope is very vast. Are you familiar with these terms, Mahayana? Okay, so the basic teachings, you could say, and all of this was taught by Lord Buddha. The basic teachings help us to become liberated from ignorance, anger, attachment, the so-called delusions, or klesh is the Sanskrit term. Those delusions, you see, make us suffer. They make us engage in negative actions, unwholesome actions, all based on a sense of very strong grasping at a sense of I, me, mine, and a very egotistical kind of attitude, which can become very selfish also, not just self-centered, but selfish, greedy. And so that makes us engage in unwholesome activity. That creates unwholesome karma, which gives unwholesome suffering results. And from a traditional Buddhist perspective, this is not just something happening in this life. It's been going on in beginningless lives. Since there is no beginning, according to Buddha, there's no beginning to consciousness. Consciousness doesn't have a beginning. Anyway, that's another point. So basically, the basic teachings are about how we can counteract the ignorance and so forth through developing wisdom, the wisdom that sees things as they are. That helps, then that will help to eradicate the anger and attachment and jealousy and pride and everything that arise out of ignorance and holding on to a strong sense of me, strong sense of I. So if we practice, for example, moral conduct, behaving in an ethical way, not harming others, basically, in any way with our body, our speech, or even mentally. So if we can do that, we will then be able to develop some kind of single-pointedness of mind, okay, concentration. Then that concentrated mind is used to generate deep wisdom, insight, which then eradicates the wisdom, eradicates the ignorance, which is the cause of all of our misery. So these are called the 3 higher trainings of moral conduct, ethical conduct, concentration, wisdom. If we develop that, what happens is we can attain nirvana. We've all heard that word. But nirvana, you see, is something you and I can attain, but we do it if we're just focusing on these teachings I've mentioned, these 3 trainings, ethical conduct, concentration, and wisdom, insight, then we liberate ourselves. We get liberated. It's like we find the method, we practice the method to get out of the jail. But only one person gets out of the jail, you see. We get out of it. I get out of the jail. You get out of the jail. We don't, it's been such an effort to get out of the jail, we haven't even had time, perhaps, to think about the other people in the jail. Whereas they may have been very helpful for us. They may have helped us dig the tunnel, that we got out of the jail in. But somehow we have only made plans to escape for ourselves. So Mahayana Buddhism, or Great Vehicle Buddhism, obviously says, well, that's wonderful that you've attained liberation, nirvana, for yourself. What about everybody else? And this is a very powerful question, actually. If you're in a blazing building and your family is there, say you have your family, children, partner, and the house is on fire, would you just jump out on your own, really? Maybe you would, if you're a very selfish person or somehow, I don't know, something triggered that, but you would feel terrible afterwards, You would feel terrible afterwards if your family were left in the fire. So that's a little bit like that. The beings who have taken to heart the Mahayana practice, they cannot bear to allow others to suffer the way they are suffering, because they know how everybody is suffering. It's not just me, If we look around, we can find plenty of people suffering a lot more than oneself, physically, mentally, every which way. So anyway, Mahayana is that attitude where we ask ourselves, what would be the best way to benefit others who are also in the same boat as me, who are suffering, want to be happy, don't want to suffer, plus this very essential factor, they've been so kind to me, meaning, how could I possibly have survived so far in my life without everything that has been provided by other people? Yeah, everything. From umbrellas to houses to this very body I inhabit. I didn't make it myself, So everything comes from other people, the efforts of other people. So how can I possibly neglect them, Only focusing on myself. This is the reasoning in Mahayana Buddhism. So therefore, I've got to attain a state where I can be of genuine benefit for others. What is that state? Well, right now, I can help people, but not very much. Let's face it. We don't really know how to help people long term. We have no idea how to help somebody long term, except to say, look, I can help you get, this kind of insurance or that kind of insurance. You'll have money in your old age, to pay for an operation or blah, blah. That's, of course, possible. But long term, beyond death, do we know how to help people die? Do we know how to help people how to navigate death? How to create the causes for a good future life? Have we any idea? We may not even have an idea of future lives, in which case, from a Buddhist perspective, we're already limited. So how to really help others? How to develop not only that long-term help, but even short-term? How to be like a refuge, a lamp for other people? This is the question. So anyway, from Buddhist, Mahayana Buddhist perspective, there is no question. One has to oneself become a fully awakened person, become, in other words, a Buddha, in order to help people in the best way. Because a Buddha has certain abilities that we don't have. So that's in a nutshell, the Mahayana. It's the aspiration to attain Buddhahood oneself in order to benefit all living beings and lead them also to Buddhahood, enlightenment. Can we do that? Yes. How come? Because we have the seed of it. We have the potential. And what does that mean? We all have the Buddha nature. What is that? That is the pristine level of awareness, hidden at the moment, but very much there. And if we develop that, if we awaken that, we can fully become a fully awakened person. It's like a seed that is buried right now in a desert, but all it takes is rain. And then if you've seen on the video, on the films, the documentaries, animal, I don't know what program it might have been on. But anyway, there are certain deserts where if it rains, and it rains once, very rarely, then all these plants come out, flowers even come out of the desert. Amazing. So it means the seeds are there. So however much we feel, dejected and downcast, depressed, all those D words, then it doesn't matter. It's that's just like the dryness of the desert. But actually, we have the seed of awakening within us. It's just not manifest right now. We haven't given it the right conditions. Flourish. So what are the right conditions? Well, engaging in the spiritual path in a authentic way, genuine way, not for fame, not to massage the ego, not, for gain, not for reputation, not for pleasure, but in some kind of deeper understanding of the benefits of the spiritual path. If that is engaged in, then we create the causes for the Buddha nature fully flourish, to that seed to sprout. And then we can become fully awakened. So are there more than one Buddha? Of course, there are billions of Buddhas, people who have beings who have practiced the path and become enlightened. Billions, uncountable. Why are we not yet Buddhas? Because we haven't eradicated ignorance, and therefore anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, all of that nonsense, and the unwholesome karmas we create as a result. They keep on trapping us in a web of suffering, frustration. So so that'll act as a motivation for today. Usually, you see, in any genuine Mahayana practice, we have three aspects to the practice. One, we start by having a good motivation. It's like, why are we here? Why are we doing all this? Just to escape the rain, or to pass the time, or to, look at other people? Why are we here? No, we're here. We can generate a motivation to be here. Well, out of course, curiosity could be there. That's good. But we could generate the thought that, look, I'm just one person out of 8 billion on this planet, just humans, let alone all the other beings. And all of us want to be happy, don't want any kind of suffering whatsoever. So what makes sense is for me to be a member of this world community who is not creating extra pain and suffering for others, and if possible, creating more happiness and harmony and so forth. That makes sense, right? So we can only do that when we work properly with the most important factor of all. The most important factor of all. Navinji, what's the most important factor of all? Okay, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
I was not listening.
Yeah, you are not listening. Okay, no problem. Anybody else? What's the most important factor of all for the path? What's the most important thing we are working with here?
Mind.
The mind. Great. Yeah, we're working with the mind. Body is important, very important, especially at our beginners level. It's very important. But if the mind is berserk, if the mind is out of control, then everything goes wrong. I think one has experience of that. When your mind feels low, negative, when it's full of, maybe for some reason or another, ill will or resentment or frustration of some kind, then fear, anxiety, then how does the world appear to you then? How do other people appear to you when you feel like that? Actually, you might not even want to leave your room. You might not want to get out of your bed and face this dreadful world. There could be days like that. It depends on the mind. So why are some people, and there are some people who are always quite chirpy and willing to benefit others? Why are there people who are, actually day in, day out, helping others in all sorts of ways? I'm not talking they have to be Buddhists or teachers, not at all. There are so many people who just get up and they are doing something useful, beneficial, creative. It comes down to mind, their mind, and the seeds, the imprints in their mind, the habitual patterns in their minds, which come from where? From previous action. We act in certain ways, so the mind works in that kind of groove. Okay, so anyway, enough words. We're going to be quiet for a while, but just a few simple instructions. So please be upright and comfortable with your mobile on silent. And if possible, don't even consult the mobile for the next 10 minutes. That would be great. And upright means comfortably upright, not like a soldier on parade. Doesn't have to be very stiff and uncomfortable. Let the arms be relaxed by the side of the body, but with a gap for air to circulate. Hands on the knees, thighs, or in the lap. Head tilted slightly forwards, downwards. So the back of the neck, a little bit stretched, elongated. Eyes can be a little bit open, but for beginners could be difficult, distracting. So if they're closed, okay. But be careful not to get sleepy. Very easy to get sleepy because we may begin to feel relaxed, which is of course very good to feel relaxed. So what we're going to do here is balance that relaxation with being awake, alert, aware. A kind of vigilance. So if our body is still, that helps. It's quite hard to be still. part of the body seems to be always moving, facial muscle, something. Just see if one can be still, sense of being relaxed, because there's not a competition, there's not a performance. We're not comparing ourselves with other people, so we can relax. But let's be very awake and alert in this present moment. We can bring our attention to the physical act of sitting and the sensation. How does it feel to be sitting on your cushion or chair? Can you feel the sensation, the contact of your body with the cushion? Of course we can, but we're just not used to maybe paying it attention unless it's hurting or, sitting on our smartphone or something. Then we notice, but can you notice just the sensation of contact of your body with the cushion and your legs and feet, also with the larger cushion or ground? Bring the attention to that. Very simply, bring the attention to that. But in a calm, relaxed way. This is not in a tense way. This is very important, especially if we've had a very busy day where we've been thinking a lot, in a sense up in the head a lot. So then to slow down and just pay attention to body, contact with the cushion or chair. This is very grounding, it can help us to harmonize or synchronize our body and mind, which are usually in a very, what should we say, busy, almost tsunami type state. So here we are slowing down deliberately and paying attention and being aware when the mind runs away, gets distracted, as it will. Nothing to worry about there, but we can recognize, let go of the distracting thought or whatever, the story we are spinning, let it go, and come back to the breath, back to the body. So I mentioned breath. Yeah, that's what our main object is going to be. So if you feel somewhat you slow down, paying attention to the body, then bring attention, if you haven't already, to the breathing. Normal breathing, nothing special. Notice the sensation as you breathe in and out through the nostrils. What does it feel like at the nostrils, in the chest? Just get a sense of the breath in the body. Whatever you feel is okay, whatever the sensation. There may be feeling of tightness in the chest or lightness. maybe some discomfort, some tingling, whatever there is, it's okay. Just pay attention. And pay attention to the out breath, which can be quite relaxing. Relaxing with the out breath. Recognizing, letting go of any thoughts, not because they're bad, but simply because we are not concerned with thinking process right now. We're letting go, coming back to the breath. Sense of letting go with the out breath. when thoughts, memories, images arise, you might notice how somehow the mind, some aspect of the mind kind of gets caught up in it. It kind of latches onto it, sticks to it, somehow captures it, makes it, it feels like, I'm having that thought, that's somehow connected with me. Identify with it. There's a charge in it. It's hard to let go. But we practice to just gently let go and come back to the breath. Whether it was something scary or exciting or disturbing, whatever that we were thinking about or having an image about, just let it go. We can come back to the breath in a sense of what we might call spaciousness. There's a sense of space, as though the mind were like a vast sky. And the thoughts and everything else are simply like temporary weather, clouds, lightning, thunder, whatever. And then they dissolve, it stops. There's a basic sense of sky behind everything, a basic sense of space in which everything is arising and passing away. Does anything, you feel, does anything stay still? And then gently just be with the breath, letting go with the out breath. Take a short break if you need to stretch or stand. Where to go? Huh?
Play the friends.
Okay. Yeah, just another minute or two. Ah, आ गया. Okay. Okay. Do you know if she left or is coming back? Any idea? If she's a new student, I just want. Okay. Okay, so is there any feedback or anything you want to discuss based based on what we have done so far? Was everything clear? Was everything clear? Yeah. Clear for everybody? Okay. Right, let's I was expecting some feedback, but one shouldn't have expectations, right? Okay. From the point of view of one particular style of, no, that's, sorry, not wrong way to put it. According to some of the teachings, perhaps quite high-level teachings, I don't know, but according to one way of looking at things, we suffer because we are unable to cope with what we might call the basic spaciousness of our situation. So we might need to explain that a bit. we are constantly filling up all the spaces. In our houses, we fill things up with many objects, and our minds are similarly full of thoughts, mainly thoughts, but also many other characters are there. There's perceptions and feelings and memories, opinions, and many concepts, subtle and gross. Then there are all of the sensations coming in based on eye, ear, nose, tongue, touch consciousnesses. All of that is there, and it's somehow, there's quite a traffic jam going on. And we get helplessly somehow just buffeted from one sensation to another, one thought to another, one perception to another, without choice somehow. It just seems that there's some kind of machine in there which keeps on moving around, keeps on operating without a break. It's very much perhaps like the sky, which may be very clear sometimes, but then at other times of year or in certain situations, certain conditions, geographical locations of the world, the sky is very rarely clear for long. There are many clouds and all kinds of phenomena happening in the sky, in the space of the sky. So that a bright open sky with full sunlight could be even quite a rare occurrence, although sometimes it would be there. So apparently at one point there was a massive volcanic eruption on this planet, which create a lot of dust, and so sunlight could not get through to the earth, and there was many associated problems with that. Crops couldn't grow, temperature dropped, so on and so forth. So it's almost as though for some of us, or for many of us, sometimes it's though there's some kind of dust, karmic dust pervading the mind from kind of lots of little volcanic eruptions, karmic imprints sprouting based on previously, performed actions. And so that's preventing us from seeing anything really clearly. And it makes us feel very cluttered and unable to somehow enjoy a spacious, open, warm, friendly state of mind. There's just too much drama going on, we could say. Some drama is nice, but if it's constant drama, tamasha, of the wrong kind, then it's tiring, it's very fatiguing, and it creates inability to relate with ourselves and others properly. And this seems to have been happening since beginningless time for us. This is what is happening. So how to generate a sense of space in the mind, a sense of spaciousness, a sense of relaxation, a sense of calm, clarity, kindness. This is the fundament. This is what we are working with in meditation practice, and which can, of course, be carried over into our daily life, obviously. It's not just something to practice on our cushion when we're in a meditation center, obviously. That wouldn't be enough. So how do we unravel this raveled up mind, this mind that often is tying itself up in knots, and we don't even realize really what we're doing very often. The constant churning out of thoughts, counter thoughts, contradictions, all sorts of wanting in the mind, all sorts of aspects which are connected with pushing away or aversion, not liking, being slightly disturbed by something. All of that is, you could say, erupting in the mind and creating a disturbance, creating fogginess in the basic space of the mind. Because what we're saying is that basically there is spaciousness. There is a vast open sky available, but just as there may be a lot of space in our homes, but sometimes we really clutter it up. And in some cases, so bad that one can't move through one's house, or a relation, or relations, or even neighbors have to call some authority and say, look, there's too much garbage or smell coming from this house. There's so much stuff, whatever. You're all getting the point. So one way of looking at the teaching, to say we're suffering because we are cowards. Cowards are people who are afraid of space. We get lost in space. We feel, oh, there's nothing to hold on to. There's too much. What do I hold on to? What are my reference points? So we need all our reference points. We need our family, we need our bodies, we need our thoughts, we need our books, we need our clothes, we need any number of things, our opinions, our whatever. We need our political party, perhaps. We need our football team. All of that we need. Or we think we need, all of that. If there's a space, a silence, it becomes a little uncomfortable. And it becomes a little uncomfortable. So if we are to develop any kind of real equanimity and understanding, making friends with ourselves and activating, nourishing our Buddha natures, then we're going to have to find a way through this maze, find a way to short circuit this very, very active wild elephant, mad, out of control monkey mind. Would we agree with that? Would you agree with that? Is what I'm saying? Well, I'm trying to follow a line of reasoning, and I'm not sure if it's succeeding. Is it clear?
This is more feedback.
Please.
Interesting trying to.
Could you speak up a bit?
Oh yes, can you hear me a bit? Is it good? So does Buddhism also say that the soul is Satchidananda? Like, is Ananda a concept in Buddhism, or is Nirvana different from Ananda? I mean, I'm just trying to understand that.
Is Nirvana different from
So
what?
Ananda is a state of eternal
Ananda.
Ananda is the state of eternal bliss. Like Nirvana, if my understanding is correct, is state of thoughtlessness. So
No, I wouldn't say either are correct. Well, Ananda means bliss, and it depends, which context it's being used in. That word isn't used very much in the Buddhist tradition. We use the word sukh, mahasukh, and there could be so many levels of that, of Anand. There are certain trance-like states which are said to be quite, blissful. it's said that when one begins to start practicing meditation seriously, three kinds of experience arise. There's bliss, okay? There's non-conceptuality, and there's clarity. At different times one could have these kind of experiences, apparently. So clarity, when things become super clear, it's like you feel you could count the atoms in a wall, something like that. Then there are times non-concept, no thoughts at all. It seems there is no conceptuality happening. And then there could be times when there's a lot of bliss, bodily bliss, mental bliss. And of course, if one hasn't had proper teachings or guidance from a qualified person, one might think, wow, this is so amazing. I want to prolong this. This must be it. But these are just byproducts of the mind becoming calmer, clearer, and more focused. These experiences can happen. They are not the sign of great understanding or realization. And they could occur in certain contexts. You might go up to, I don't know, Haridwar, not Haridwar. You might go to Rishikesh or above, or to Dharamsala or somewhere, and then you have you feel some kind of mystical experience or sense of deep calm or bliss comes in meditation, and you say, wow, But then when you come back to Kanpur or Delhi or Chandigarh or wherever, maybe not so much Chandigarh, but Kanpur, Delhi, Lucknow, Patna, those kind of places, then you feel, what happened? What happened to the bliss, You have to deal with your mother, your father, your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law, maybe your mother-in-law, father-in-law. Then you understand how deep your bliss is, Where did the bliss go? Where did the non-conceptuality go? You want to strangle that person. What happened to the non-conceptuality? What happened to the clarity? So these are very temporary states. So when we speak of nirvana in Buddhism, we're talking about a very, very exalted state where the ego has basically been totally deconstructed. One does not have the ordinary kind of egoic consciousness. There is no clinging to I, me, mine. One has attained what is called, understanding of selflessness, anatta, which are mentioned a lot, I think, anitya and anatya are mentioned in the Goenka courses, right? Especially impermanence, impermanence. But also selflessness. So when that becomes fully established, when one is, has no more clinging left, no more attachments, no more anger, and so forth, at a very high level. So that may be called nirvana. So that's not anand. That is not anand. Anand is a very much lower level of, experience. It's not even, one couldn't call it a wisdom even. It's just an experience that comes.
Ananda, which is felt by the mind. Ananda, which is felt by the mind, you're saying, is much lower than nirvana.
Yeah, I mean, you can have ananda when you feel very dirty and hot and sweaty and you have a wonderful shower, and you feel ananda, you feel some bliss, but that's got nothing to do with having deep realization or understanding of selflessness, understanding of compassion. It is a very temporary physical experience, that one. Of course, there's a mental component, but that's very short-lived. So, yeah, and I think what is very sad nowadays is that because also we're speeded up, we're in a hurry, so people want happiness, they want pleasure, they want bliss, and they want spiritual bliss. And there may be certain techniques, of course, which could bring one to a certain level of bliss or anand. But it's just a temporary experience. It's got nothing to do with necessarily becoming a compassionate, wise human being, let alone, somebody who wants to really exert themselves in benefiting others long term. In fact, the experience of bliss distracts, I think, maybe people, a lot of people. So they just want to stay with that. And some people experience it so strongly, then they feel they're pretty much enlightened, and they start trying, teaching people, becoming a guru or something, based on some bliss they've experienced. And then maybe they have techniques where they can regularly experience that bliss, but it's got nothing to do with being according to Buddhism, nothing to do with being a wise, compassionate, highly realized, human being. Compassion seems to be deficient in a lot of spirituality. Real compassion, which finds the pain and suffering of others really, in a sense, unbearable, and not wanting to delay a second in, generating more causes to be of benefit to others, establishing a very powerful state of consciousness that is then able to benefit others. That seems to be missing in a lot of. I can't think of any. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. There are some very kind and compassionate people in all of the religious traditions. But I think Buddhism is a bit unique in uniting the sense of bodhicitta, which is the word you'll have heard many times on your Tushita course, which is the aspiration to become enlightened in order to benefit others. And then combining that with great wisdom, understanding the nature of things, that I think is something very unique to Buddhism. First of all, the bodhicitta, this sense that, one is willing to come back into this world or any world where there are suffering beings again and again and again until all of them are liberated. That's an extraordinary state of mind. So if you think, that's very extraordinary. And not taking it as something, oh, how great I am to be having this state of mind. It's completely becoming one with that kind of spontaneous state of mind, wanting to benefit others, finding great joy in that. Finding great joy in working for others, benefiting others. Because, why? Because the selfish mind has been eradicated. How? Through practice. Practice, through the path, through practice, through the correct techniques or non-techniques at a certain point. Effort followed by non-effort. How do you become a good anything? A cyclist, let's say. First you put effort, and at the very beginning stage you keep on falling off the bicycle. We have, have bloody knees again and again as we fall off the bicycle, but then one day, at a certain point, it becomes effortless. And then we don't keep on thinking about how we're riding the bicycle, do we? We just let go of it. So as the Buddha said, the dharma, the teachings are like a raft. Once they've taken you to the other shore, you let go of the raft. You don't keep on carrying it. Stupid. Once you've reached where you need to reach, you let go of the raft. So there's a certain point where one, of course, goes beyond ordinary, conventional understanding of what is spirituality, what is the path. One becomes it. One becomes the path. One becomes it. Anyway, so Buddha nature, are we any closer to understanding what Buddha nature might be? It's said to be spacious, it's said to be warm, full of warmth, kindness, openness, and intelligence, a deep intelligence, a wisdom. Have we had moments when we have a whiff of that, a glimpse of that? That could be part of our basic nature? You have, good. Some people are nodding. Some people maybe don't know. Some people Yeah. Basic goodness. What about people online? Anybody feel that basic goodness is there, basic sanity is there rather than basic insanity or basic turmoil? What are we basically at root, fundamentally, do you think? Okay, let me read something and then we'll have some discussion. It's something I read recently, but it's something worth listening to again and again and again, like brushing one's teeth and for me checking the Guardian newspaper website. Okay, so please listen very carefully. Very carefully, because this is so essential. It has incredible implications. It's like everybody is implicated in this. Everybody, from Vladimir Putin to you and me here, and to everybody. A great deal of chaos in the world occurs because people don't appreciate themselves. Neither do we understand ourselves, nor do we appreciate ourselves properly. When you don't punish or condemn yourself, and the implication being a lot of the time we are doing that, but when we don't punish or condemn ourselves, when you relax more and appreciate your body and mind, you begin to contact the fundamental notion of basic goodness in yourself. But it's only going to happen when we relax more and appreciate our body and mind. So it's extremely important to be willing to open yourself to yourself. And I would argue that we don't allow that to happen. It becomes a little tricky or a bit scary when we feel we need to open ourselves to ourselves or to somebody else. It's a bit scary. So we just distract ourselves with something else. We make a cup of tea, or we eat something, or we, switch on one of the technologies, check our messages, something like that. We have plenty to distract ourselves with nowadays. So it's extremely important to be willing to open ourselves to ourselves. Developing tenderness towards yourself allows you to see both your problems and your potential accurately. It's an interesting sentence. Developing tenderness towards yourself allows you to see both your problems and your potential accurately. Does that make sense to us? Maybe if you are a parent, it might make more sense. I don't know. In the context of being tender to your children. If you are not tender with your children, I wonder what happens. Do you then even understand them? Do you appreciate them? Do you see how they may be, sabotaging themselves? How they can be helped? If we don't slow down and if we're not tender towards them, can we then see their potential accurately? I wonder. But of course, this applies to anything. You can be tender with your garden plants. Or you can of course, on the worst side, you can just neglect them, allow them to die of lack of water through being careless. Or you can just, throw water at them. So, okay, I used to have a maid who, of course, she'd always be in a hurry. She would throw water on the plants. That was her way of watering it. That's not the way to water plants, because the force is too much, and then some of the earth just gets, washed away. So do we have the patience, the tenderness to even water our plants properly? So this is important. So do we even stop and accurately, any time of day or in the evening, do we check with a sense of kindness towards ourselves? How was the day? How am I? How am I really? Should I pay more attention to that particular problem or that pain in the knee or whatever? Should I not be happy that I did something that was useful for somebody? Should I not rejoice at that? Should I just forget that and say, well, yeah, basically I'm what I am, but that just happened to occur. How do we appreciate? How do we look at ourselves? Are we tender with ourselves? Maybe it's a word we get very embarrassed about. It's okay for a mother to be tender towards her newborn child, but other than that, we feel, oh, it makes us feel a little uncomfortable. Maybe, I don't know, more, would it make men more comfortable than women, do you think, nowadays? Sujitji, you have your finger on the pulse.
At what point do we draw the line that is self-appreciation?
That it's one?
Self-appreciation and narcissism.
Oh,
At what point,
that's a good question.
Narcissism. So at what point we draw the line?
At what point, gentleman asked, do we draw the line between tenderness towards ourselves and narcissism? Remember, Narcissus apparently got so infatuated by his reflection in the water that he fell in. Yeah, of course. I was just reading today something on that, just this afternoon, about how it's not just about that, but that's another matter. I was reading a Jungian psychotherapist on that. Anyway, you tell me, what's your experience of that?
Or Kabirji, another way to put it could be like self-care versus self-indulgence.
Self-care versus self-indulgence. Then who's to say what is self-care and what is self-indulgence? That's, I guess the person has to work it out themselves, right? What is taking care of yourself and what is excessive self-indulgence? So if we have, I don't know, give an example of care, when you cared for yourself and when you are indulgent. Can you do that without being embarrassed? Nivita ji?
Yeah. Even like simple things like let's say just staying at home one day, feeling like you just want to stay at home and not really engage much, but then I feel like that can also borderline into indulging in what I feel my worldly desires are, just basic comforts and not engage, just sort of withdrawal from the world.
Yeah. You feel you should be
and
out
just
there.
getting cozy, watching Netflix, drinking some tea.
Yeah.
Can very easily be thinking rather than healing, I guess.
Yeah, because you should be out here at Tushita making tea for people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's we are constantly engaged in a civil war. I think we've forgotten how to relax and take care of ourselves properly. Really, we have. So I think this becomes a big issue for us. The gentleman who asked the question, do you have an answer? The beginnings of an answer?
I really don't know. Well,
Really? Do you take care of yourself? Do you take care of your health?
I do, but I feel that at times self-criticism also helps in many people's. In my experience.
Self-criticism helps.
Yes,
Of course it can, but then that can get out of hand as well, right?
I mean, many people have come in my experience who are self-appreciating so much that it is really a problem.
Yeah, of course.
I
Yeah.
really think that many people more than self-appreciation need self-criticism.
Yeah, I mean, if one needs to see a cardboard cutout of oneself on every corner, then it's got too far, right? But I think often we neglect ourselves. Otherwise, why would so many people get sick and have to go to doctors? According to many people, good healers and doctors, the body gives plenty of signals, to us. And when we ignore them for long enough, sometimes, then we have to go to a doctor, mental signals, physical signals, then we have to, go to the doctor because we didn't pay attention. We thought, or through fear. Doctor ke paas jayenge to kya bolega? Maybe I have cancer, maybe I have a heart problem, But basically, we're not properly taking care of ourselves. And then we think we're taking care of ourselves so well by going to the doctor and spending thousands of rupees, helping the economy, doctors' economy, pharmaceutical companies, Anyway, that's a question about the very fact that you asked that question to me suggests that we have a problem with taking care of ourselves. We're afraid it will border on narcissism. But of course, we can be very narcissistic. If you spend hours every day looking at your navel in the mirror or adjusting your eyelashes or, trying to get rid of the wrinkles around your eyes, if you spend hours every day doing that, yeah, one might say that's excessive. That's a little narcissistic, Or if you're someone who goes in for plastic surgery with great regularity, or it's September again, it's time for another round of plastic surgery, then it's too much. But we need help. And if we don't help ourselves, then we need to get other people to help us. And then that becomes burdensome for other people and expensive for us. What do you think? What do other people think?
Having a goal, I think, could be a bit of a standard.
What's that?
Having a goal.
A goal.
A spiritual goal. That could be a bit of a standard that could help us decide if it's self-indulgence or if it's self-care. I mean, if some kind of activity is helping us get closer to the goal, then that is self-care. But then if it is only there because we want to distract ourselves, then I think that
having a goal can be problematic, no? One can become ambitious, you think, or very having a lot of expectations and wondering when can I achieve my goal? And then it becomes me trying to achieve my goal. There could be that. But of course, in Mahayana, we say, I go for refuge till I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, Dhamma, highest assembly. From the positive energy I generate by practicing giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So it seems like we have a goal. But then the trick is, or whatever, as the wisdom teachings say, that, and in this marvelous, I mean, it's just extraordinary the way this goes, If you look at the Vajrakata Sutra, often called the Diamond Sutra, Vajrachedika in Sanskrit, then on the second page, first page, second page, Subhuti asks the Buddha, how should a bodhisattva act? How behave, And then the Buddha says to him basically that you have to have this, you should observe all the living beings, that are there, conceivable, those who are born from the womb, born from eggs, in other words, he goes through the kind of all of the beings that could exist, pretty much. And he's saying, and then the Buddha says, then you have to feel that I have to lead all of them to nirvana, and to Buddhahood, whatever. But you must not think that any being has been liberated. You mustn't think that any being has been liberated. So you mustn't fixate on any being. And if you think you are a bodhisattva who has helped or is helping people to get enlightened, then you're not a proper bodhisattva. मतलब अपने बारे में जो भी हम लोग सोचते हैं ना, मैं के बारे में, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm achieving a goal, that disqualifies us from being a fully qualified bodhisattva. Then we are likely to get caught up with the incredible, what shall we say, incredible, sophisticated, clever network of ego, which can appropriate everything. It's a subtle level. I am traversing the path. I am going to get enlightened. So this becomes a problem. So I'm just saying that in the wisdom literature, the Pragya Paramita literature, which is some of the highest Buddhist teachings, connected with wisdom, and remember, without wisdom, no liberation, no Buddhahood. Compassion does not lead to Buddhahood alone. It has to have wisdom. So these wisdom teachings are emphasizing that if there is no me who is liberating others, and there are no real independently existing others either, so that is something to ponder. So I'm just saying that if we have a goal, we should be careful. Yeah, there is something we call a goal, and there's something called a person. There's somebody called Kabir who's trying to do this, that, and the other. Just as on the simple example of the chariot in the Buddhist teachings, where Nagasena says to the king, Menandar, they come to the conclusion that there is merely something which we call a chariot for convenience. There is no independently existing chariot, because whatever you point to is not the chariot. It's a part of a chariot. Chariot is a convenient label, as is person, as is table, as is anything else, right? You remember? You're beginning to remember the wisdom teachings on that 10-day course. They must have had some days on emptiness, right? Or something on emptiness dependent arising. Anyway, so yeah, ambition. But yeah, having a goal, of course it can be very useful, of course.
By a goal, I mean more like a discipline. Say, for example, if I have a goal that I would practice my meditation, for example, every day for half an hour.
Yeah.
Now, if I am doing something to my body, to myself, to my workspace, to my family, that may help me achieve that half an hour every day, I will call that self-care. If I'm too tired, then I'm taking a break so that I get there every day. I'm able to sit for half an hour every day. If my legs are hurting, I help myself. That I would say is self-care. But if I'm tired and I'm frustrated, and instead of working out, I start scrolling on my phone because I'm frustrated, I would call that self-care. So that's how goals work in that.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. If there's no goals, if there's no discipline,
yes,
in the sense of, and one teacher brought out the fact that discipline means, being a good disciple.
Yeah.
In that sense, then yeah, if there's no discipline, nothing works. Absolutely. There has to be some foundation of doing things properly. But it has to be maybe done with a bit of a relaxed state of mind also. We often become very, what should we say, a little bit rigid about things. Then can also get quite critical of other people who are not doing things the way we think they should be doing it, you know. So we have to be careful of that. Yeah.
And what Venerable Priyadarshi said when he gave his lecture weeks ago,
Mm.
and he said he was talking about the perfection of
Effort, was
was it effort or generosity?
it? Maybe generosity.
Where he said that, you know, the perfection of this would be attaining a state whereby neither the giver nor the receiver nor the object that is being extended to help someone goes away from this thinking that, oh, she helped me or I helped them, or this was useful as a tool. They are all left for the better, but neither of them take away a sense, leave with a sense of it was, I was responsible for creating this effect in them, or they helped me, or this tool is the most useful tool to overcome this particular.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Which
one
which
is,
to me speaks of a kind of wisdom. It's complete lack of-
yeah. Yeah. Certainly, it shouldn't give the recipient the sense that someone has felt sorry for them and therefore is giving to them, or is somehow feeling pity for them or anything like that, of course. But to have a sense of no clinging to self, object, and the action of giving, that of course, very, very high realization, very high practice, very high practice to be, but sometimes we might, you know, feel that, yeah, spontaneously it is happening. Spontaneously one is giving or being patient or whatever. And there's no sense of I'm doing it. Yeah, possibly. Of course, we cannot vouch for the recipient, what they're thinking. They might be, someone who is not practicing.
He was saying if you're skillful enough,
Mm.
do it in a way that the recipient is also able to feel this lack of self, then that is the real perfection of a quality of virtue that you are.
That would be really some kind of giving where the other also, yeah, feels just part of the flow, part of being in the zone. It's like being in the zone. Sometimes when one has played football, not cricket so much, but football many years ago, it feels like the players are in a zone. When you're playing very well and your other teammates are playing well, then there's just a sense of it's just happening. It's quite rare because one has to be pretty good usually. But there are moments when, yes, there is no sense of, we also had once there was this amazing game we played with just passing a ball around the hand with Lama Yeshe near the Pashupatinath's ghats in Kathmandu. It was extraordinary. I think due to Lama's something, it was this amazing game. And it was just like I don't know, it's hard to describe. Just like a flow was happening. And a lot of joy and spontaneity. That kind of, so yeah, when one is not fixated on, now I'm going to give this to that person, it just happens. And that could only, I think, occur in ordinary life when, I was going to say through a lot of practice, but sometimes it comes without practice. You just, due to the power of a certain person also, and their spontaneity, you're also caught up in that spontaneity. So,
In the context of what Milan said about the goal, not having a goal necessarily,
yes.
practice without having, perhaps, keeping this in mind as more to say about it.
Yeah, it's tricky to talk about these things. But it's like if you're a really good football side, then of course you're trying to score goals. But maybe your play is just so amazing that naturally goals are going to get scored, and you don't have to worry about it. If you're Manchester City, then you easily put 6, 7 goals past people. It just happens somehow. And if you don't have some big egotistic center forward who jumps up and down and just thinks he has scored the goal, and if there's a team that plays together well and does a lot of passing and scores, then that's that could even be there to some extent in a football team where none of them are practicing meditation. None of them are card-carrying Buddhists or any other religion necessarily. So yes, it's a question of how much I think also we are very self-conscious. Yeah, we are very self-conscious, most of us. And we are putting on some kind of show, putting on an act a lot of the time. We have a mask. And just to be spontaneous and spacious and just be, that's difficult, isn't it? We're always trying to be something, impress somebody or something. And just to let go of all that, that's possible, of course. But definitely possible, but not so easy. Because it also depends who we're with. We could be very stilted and rigid and somehow cautious around certain people, but not around others. That's also there. And of course, alcohol helps some people also to let go, but that would be an artificial way of doing it. But alcohol in the right measure, the right person, could be very useful. Even Lama Yeshe said that, some drugs occasionally could be very useful to lighten some people up, blow their minds a little, make their minds a bit more spacious. But it has to be treated with care, I think. Things like that. Nature is a good drug. Nature, music, loving kindness. Those are good drugs. But again, they could also be misused. So I don't know, that seems to be due to good questions from various people, the confusion, not confusion, but it shows us that this is not something very simple, certainly not to talk about. Maybe a lot of this is just reminding us that what is most important somehow cannot be expressed in words. And as in that story for children, or so-called story for children by Saint-Exupéry, those things which are most important, some things can only be seen with the heart. They cannot be seen with the eyes or described with the words. That's also, I think, the case. And we'll find some very strange language in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras of Buddhism for that reason, that that wisdom cannot be expressed in ordinary language at all. It has to be also ordinary terminology. Yeah, okay. So I think we should stop now, or else I will muddy the waters even further, and we will find ourselves further and further away from our Buddha nature. But that is good. Well, I hope that's a little bit useful and not too confusing for the beginners. We kind of went into a bit of mystical areas there. But was it useful, even a little bit? It's useful someone to come out, and just be with other people for a while. Do you work in an office?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, this is like different from your office. So at least that's good to have a new environment. And was it for you, sir, it's useful to come to a
Yes.
so-called Mahayana den? Yeah. Okay. And then we have Maitreya Buddha behind us, so giving the inspiration, the Buddha of loving kindness, future Buddha. Though needs some work done on the metal work. It's getting spoiled, but anyway, he's representative of the Buddhas, all the Buddhas, loving kindness especially. And he's said to be the next world teacher, Buddha. Like Shakyamuni was 2,500 years ago, Maitreya is in the future, quite a while yet. But said to be the future Buddha. So anyway, so at least we've had some sort of, Coca-Cola signs or some film actor behind us. We have Maitreya, so that's useful. Good image, good imprint. And we have the Pandits on the wall and Buddha images, different aspects of Buddhas. So anyway, so we can dedicate, meaning that we realize maybe some goodness happened in the last couple of hours, hour and 3/4. And we dedicate, we kind of recognize that, and we direct that positive energy in a good direction. So what direction do we want to, we want it to help us develop more genuine compassion and wisdom. We want it to help us become human beings who are like an oasis, like a shelter for other people who are sad and unhappy and bereft of help or friends or guidance. We want to be like that for other people. May we become like that for wandering, sad, sentient beings, including animals, of course. Any being we may encounter. May we be beneficial for them, wish fulfilling for them, and may we help others to awaken their Buddha nature and become fully awakened people. And may we we dedicate for the teachings to last a very long time, and for the teachers, great teachers, to have long and healthy lives, all their holy wishes to be fulfilled. We dedicate for all who are sick and ill, among our friends, people we know. Dedicate for them. And spend a few moments dedicating this energy for people you know and wish to benefit. Okay, thank you very much. Our next session is Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Yeah.